Your Miami Dolphins are back in the win column, but how long will it last? What's going on, Dolphins fans? Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am your host, Chris Perkins, your columnist, Dolphins columnist from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. That is Dave Hyde, your columnist from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Dave Hyde was kind enough to include me in his column last week. How about that, man? How about that?
Yeah, all for one for all, Perk. Yep. Talk about it. If Frank Smith can come down from the press box to help the team, and whatever works. If they want Perk down, have him go down, right?
There you go. That's it, man. That is it. Well, I don't think Mike McDaniel would be thrilled to have me on the sideline. He's not thrilled about having me in the media room, but that's a different topic. Again, welcome all our viewers here. Thank you for joining us, everybody who's watching on YouTube. We'd like to remind you to leave a comment, thought, or a criticism on our live chat, the best place to get intelligent Dolphins talk. We'd like to remind you that if you miss any part of this show, you can catch the podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'd like to invite you to sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Fans Flash, that you can subscribe to by scanning the QR code that will be shown on your screen. All right. So the Miami Dolphins 34-10 win against Atlanta last week, the most complete victory of the season. Of course, there's only been one other victory. That was against the New York Jets. But the Dolphins looked really, really good. They did. And this was the Dolphins team that I thought we were going to see coming out of training camp. This was the Dolphins team that I predicted, perhaps foolishly now, to win 9 games this season. So we're going to talk about a couple of things today. We're going to talk about whether that performance is repeatable, and we're going to talk about what Tua can do moving forward and how much of a help it was, the things that were done on Sunday for Tua's game. Was that a Tua great game, or was that Tua having a lot of help? And then we will also make our predictions on Thursday's game against the Baltimore Ravens, a game that has Lamar Jackson making a homecoming and that brings hulking running back Derrick Henry to Hard Rock Stadium. As we always say around here, there's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde. So tell me about that performance that you saw against the Falcons. Is it repeatable, and why?
Well, as of right now, if you were put together a highlight film of this season, you would just run that whole game because not much else would fit into it, and that it was that type of a game. At the end of the year, I throw out their worst performance, every team's worst performance, and best performance because there's always outliers. The question becomes, is that going to be an outlier for this season? Or did they find some answers? And, what they did defensively with Bijan Robinson shutting him down, Jordan Brooks had a great game. Now, is this repeatable? Is what they did offensively, bringing in another guard and Brunskill and replacing playing tight end, basically. He's taking the tight end spot. Did that help? The running game, they stuck with it and it was productive. That helped. They got the lead early. I don't know if it's repeatable. I have absolutely no idea because I was as surprised by it as everybody. And just as I was surprised all season by, as you mentioned, their struggling play. So I think I've been wrong on every single prediction except the Jets game this year, right down to last week where I finally said, okay, I'm done picking the Dolphins, and I picked Atlanta, and they won. So don't ask me whether they can repeat this.
You know what, Dave? I mean, my season record is not much better than yours, but I do think that it's repeatable. And one thing that I saw with the run defense that really stood out to me was guys were tackling the ball carrier instead of trying to punch the ball and cause turnovers. And when they did the punching the ball and trying to cause turnovers, we saw a lot of a lot of yards after contact and a lot of yards after catch. And we did not see that on Sunday. Guys tackled the ball carrier. They swarmed through the ball carrier, even if it was, Kyle Pitts or any of the other receivers. Bijan Robinson, 9 carries for 25 yards, if I'm not mistaken. And it was usually 2 or 3 guys around the ball. And I know that they had that emphasis on creating turnovers because they were at such a turnover deficit. I think they were at -6 at one point this season. But the turnover margin was only 1-0. The Dolphins won it last week, and that was a clutch turnover that they got after that, 37-yard pass interference against Rasul Douglas. So I do think that defensively, that performance is repeatable. And look, you consider what they didn't have defensively when you consider that Storm Duck went out with an injury. And, you had Kendall Sheffield in there playing cornerback at one point. Jack Jones was alternating with Storm Duck. But you had Dante Trader in there at safety. You had a lot of things out there. Kenneth Grant didn't play as well as he played 2 weeks ago, but he still had a decent performance. This wasn't a game that featured a lot of sacks and a lot of interceptions and things like that. It was just good, solid football. So that's why I think it's repeatable defensively. And then offensively, like you say, bringing in Daniel Brunskill as the 6th offensive lineman / tight end, I thought was an inspired move by Mike McDaniel. I wish they'd have done that earlier in the season or earlier in the Mike McDaniel era. And then I also thought, as you said, sticking with the run did them a lot of favors, utilizing all 3 running backs. This was not any magical discovery by Mike McDaniel or Anthony Weaver or even Craig Aukerman, the special teams coach. And by the way, when I talked about the defense, they didn't have Ashton Davis out there as the safety. That's why Dante Trader was out there. Ashton Davis hurt his quad on the first punt of the game that the Dolphins had after their 3-and-out. So, Hyde, that's why I think that this performance is repeatable. There was nothing there that you thought, oh, boy, that was brilliant. That was just inspired. I mean, Brunskill was good. Having Frank Smith on the sideline was good. But I think all of this stuff is repeatable. I really do. And so these are just football.
Where's it been? Where's it been then?
Well, because I think that they were so occupied with things like creating turnovers and getting Achane the ball in different spots. It kind of blinded them to what they really have on this roster. Focus on a few things that you do well. We didn't see them trying to force the deep ball. That was another thing that, and so I thought all of these things were just really good. Let's get back to basics. Let's utilize the players on our roster. The key here, Hyde, is will the Dolphins get greedy and will they try to go back to, getting Jalen Waddle deep passes and trying to rely on the big play and the strip and all that kind of stuff? Or will they trust their talent and trust their coaching? To me, that's a big key going into Thursday's game.
Well, I would think here we go back to 2016 when Adam Gase changed his mindset from a wide open to a running game. Now, it's not going to be as run heavy as that. But I think both the parallel to me is you had a coach and a team that was desperate to win, and they found a formula to win. And if, as you say, they found a formula to win, then they got to stick with it. And I think they're desperate enough to do that. I'm not quite as fixed on the formula as you are, but it was a eye-opening game. Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we go on, let's say what's up to some of our viewers here. Billy Batson Marvell, Marcellus Temple, good to see you back. Dead Streak. Let's see, who else have we got on here? Shanti 1496, Bigota 1775, Rogue Scorpio 1, Comrade 3611. Good to see you, Comrade. Cocktail Dad 85. Who else have we got in here? Junior Pyron. I'm butchering some of these. Roger Allman is back in the house. Always good to see Roger. Shake Money, Shake. What's up, baby? Let's see. Who else have we got in here? Pete, I can't, my contact lenses are really failing me too here. Pete N1B, is that what that is? Steve Romero, 3076. Good to see everybody in here. Legend, 1849. Always good to see you in here. A lot of good names in here. A lot of our regulars, Ender Fireplace, White, Z in Fireplace YT. Wow, I'm struggling with these contacts. 3306. I do need to go Friday and get my contacts prescription renewed. This is really getting bad here. Mike BB9 UK says best game for defensive backfield too. They cannot do what they did without that. And I agree. The secondary, look, you were shuffling personnel. And it helped that Atlanta did not have Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. They didn't have Drake London there at receiver. But the Dolphins played really good pass defense. There were none of those big plays that we've seen in the past. Again, the tackling was good. The pass coverage was good. Rasul Douglas had the only penalty, as I recall, on the secondary. I think the other two penalties might have been 2 false starts and an illegal formation, something like that. But, playing clean football like that is very good. And here's the other thing. Who says Billy Batson Marvell, run game coordinator McDaniel, finally entered the building? Hyde, Mike McDaniel came to the Dolphins as the 49ers run game coordinator. Do you think he got too far away from that with Tyreek Hill? Because I thought there was such a, what I used to say, the offense was about two things, Tyreek Hill and the threat of Tyreek Hill. You had no Tyreek Hill, you had no Darren Waller, and I thought that forced them to go to basics, utilize what you've got, and just focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the speed offense that they had was a lot of fun there for 3/4 of 1 year. But they probably got away from their basics too much. And I think Mike's tried to do that this year. You look at a few games, they've had a nice mix of run and pass. Where they get in trouble is when they're down. And this was a game where from the start they were up, comfortably by half, and they just kept riding that in through the second half, so they could stick. It was easier to stick with the running game and have a blend of passing, and it helped Tua too, as we'll get into with his passing. He had a very nice day, but if they can run the ball like that, it makes everything so much easier.
Bigota 1775 says, right, getting old hella sucks. I need glasses to see close now. Walmart sold me bad eyes, shaking my head. So, yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. Yeah, it does suck getting old. But at least I'm still around here.
I'm older, Kirk, so let's not get into age jokes, okay?
That's right. Exactly, man. Let's see. I saw one on here that I wanted to read, and I lost it. It was about 1-6, 2-6, not much better than 1-6. Still need to fire Greer and McDaniel, I think is what it said. I can't get. I've lost it here. But how big a difference do you think that game meant to Steve Ross, Dave Hyde?
I would hope the same as to us, which is not much, not significant. I mean, it was a nice game, fun game to come out of if you're the Dolphins, get rewarded for some work and feel a lot better about yourself. But if we're talking big picture, I don't think it really changed anything. So, the question becomes, can it change anything if they win 6 out of their next 7? I mean, I'm not predicting that, but what would change? And that would be, something we'll deal with if it happens.
Somebody said, do I need a visor? I might need the visor. Do the Tua thing there.
Get an iPad, magnifying glass, Mark.
That's right. I think I need some bottle caps.
You could just call it Halloween. You're dressed up. We didn't even dress up for Halloween, did we, this year? You could have brought a magnifying glass and been Sherlock Holmes or something.
That's right. Exactly. Hyde, when you talk about the adjustments that were made between running the ball more having Frank Smith on the sideline and having Daniel Brunskill at guard and, sixth offensive lineman and extra tight end, which do you think made the biggest difference in the outcome of the game?
Well, I think running the ball more. Now, you could say Brunskill helped run the ball more. Inside the team, they said it mattered. And if they say it mattered to them. And it helped. I think every little bit – they've had such bad games that you come out of it and you say any change helped, okay, on Sunday, any good change. So Frank Smith, maybe that mattered to them. But running the ball, sticking with the run. Look, their first touchdown drive, they ran 9 out of 13 plays. And they held the ball 8 minutes, 33 seconds. That was the textbook, drive that defined the day for both teams, really. Because I was surprised Atlanta defense didn't have any muscle. I was surprised their offense didn't have any muscle. Because I thought this would be a real tough matchup for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I did too. And Atlanta just really didn't show it a whole lot of fight. Consider this: if you're a Falcons fan, you've lost 30-0 to Carolina and 34-10 to the Dolphins. You got to be wondering what the heck is going on down there. I mean, it's incredible. Pretty boy FPV 7740 says, "I'm the real pretty boy." That might be fighting words right there.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. That might be fighting words. And True Blazer says, "You need some readers." I do need some readers. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling. Hyde, when this is bad. Hyde, when you look at the fumble recovery that the Dolphins had, right there, I believe it was in the red zone. I think the score was 17-3 at that point, and the Falcons could have gone to 17-10. And at that point, that was after the pass interference, and I'm sure a lot of people were thinking, here we go. Here's where the Falcons get going. How big a play was that? And again, that's something that's repeatable, but how big a play do you think that was in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I mean, you talk about everything going the Dolphins' way. That was the play to me that exhibit. Nobody touched Bijan Robinson.
Right.
His big churning knee knocked the ball out of his hand, and the Dolphins fell on it. Good for the Dolphins, bad for Atlanta. But to me, because as you say, it could have been a 17-10 game, and here we go. Who knows what's going to happen from there? Instead, the Dolphins fell on it, went down and scored, made it 24-3, and lights out on the day. But that was a play that said everything's going the Dolphins' way this day.
Yeah. Bigotes 1775 says Steve Ross should ask Mike McDaniel, where has this Dolphin squad been? This team definitely looked different. And I'll say this again, this was the Dolphins team that I thought we were going to see coming out of training camp. This was the Dolphins team that I thought could win 9 games this season. I didn't think a 9-win Dolphins team was going to the playoffs, but I thought it would make a good showing. I thought it would make a fair showing as they transition from winning with vets and free agents to trying to win with youth and draftees. And really what I thought what we saw out there was just a solid performance, just good, solid football. Again, nothing spectacular. No 100-yard rusher, no 100-yard receiver, even though Waddle was 5 for 99. Tua's numbers weren't eye-popping. Jordan Brooks with the 10 tackles, 3 for loss, and that was good. But Hyde, again, this wasn't anything special. What do you think was holding the Dolphins back in the first 2-6, first 7 games? Look at those math skills. I can't see, but I can add and subtract.
Close your eyes and see the numbers. Look, what's holding them back? The defense, to me, was holding them back. And then Tua's errors at the end of games. But the defense got run over. I mean, it made household names of, let's go, Rico Dowdle, Vidal. I can't remember. Yeah. I can't even remember his first name for the Chargers. And so right there, to me, that was the difference, that they could stop the run and get the ball back to the offense. And then the offense ran the ball. The 2 lines for the first time this year I thought, controlled the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Okay, and not they didn't dominate or anything, but they controlled it well enough to stop the run. And then the front seven of the defense played in the way that I know you've talked about before. That's the way I thought they were going to be all year. And then um, they ran the ball, and Mike used all three backs for the first time all year, and that was a surprise to me. The play of the line, can they do that through the rest of the year?
Yeah, and a few people are talking about Jordan Brooks and how he plays. Steve C. Y10 says, is Jordan Brooks getting traded after this game while the stock is so high and they just restructured his contract? He did have his contract restructured. I believe he got $3 million off the top of my head. I don't see him being traded. I don't see a major move coming here. I think Bradley Chubb is the guy that you have to watch because of his performance and his salary, and he's a desirable piece for a team that feels that they need another edge rusher to help them get to where they want to go. Jalen Phillips is a guy who's coming off of two season-ending injuries, and he needs a contract. He's playing on the fifth year of his fifth-year option. The fifth year of his fifth-year option, he's playing on his fifth-year option. And so, that's a little extra baggage that goes along with him. And then I know that there's other names out there, but I don't see Achan or Waddle being traded. I don't see Minka being traded. And once you get past those guys, I just don't see a whole lot of value for other teams on this roster. Do you see anybody aside from Chubb that would be a primary trade candidate to be traded from the Dolphins?
I gotta admit, I don't see. I've watched Chubb. I just don't think he's having a great year, and he's
Right.
had moments. But yeah, a guy like Brooks. I mean, let's say they lose. So much of it's based on what's going on right in the moment, right? And it shouldn't be, but they beat Atlanta. Oh, they could turn it around. Don't trade anybody. If they lose to Baltimore,
Yeah.
and once again the season's a sunk, and everybody's. I mean, the season's sunk. Okay, they aren't going to come
Yeah.
back, and I hate to break the news to anybody who still thinks they can run the table here, but so let's say they lose, they go. So now they're 2-7.
Yeah.
But I'm with you in the fact I don't think they have a lot to trade now. What if someone came and said we need a quarterback? Trade Rasul Douglas for a fifth-round pick or sixth-round pick. I don't know. Some contending team has watched Rasul Douglas play and say we'll take. He looks pretty good. We'll cross our fingers and hope that's the case. I think he would do something like that. But I would trade Chubb. Yeah, William Judon. You look at what's going on. Philadelphia just brought Brandon Graham out of retirement,
Right.
which tells you, in some regard, okay, he's a fixture there, but it's also how desperate some teams are, contending teams even, to get some pass rushers. So
Yeah.
maybe Chubb you'd get, but what would you get from him? I don't think a blockbuster sitting out there. Maybe you get a fifth round for Chubb or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, that's what I would think. And Rasul Douglas, that's a good name to throw out there. The Dolphins, I wonder what they would do from a self-preservation standpoint, considering Storm Duck just went down for the
yeah,
season and Jason Marshall Jr. is still on IR with that hamstring injury. They're down in cornerbacks. They did bring Kendall Sheffield back October 18th, and he got a few snaps out there on Sunday, but they really, really be hurting at cornerback.
here's what I would say. Let me say one thing about the trade deadline. If I'm the Dolphins, I have to think, okay, your rookies, your young players look like they're making small steps now, right? I mean, the last couple of weeks, you got the defensive lineman had made some steps. Savaniah, I didn't say it right. I can know Jonah. It looks like he made some steps on Sunday. You got to keep that going, and you can't just indiscriminately trade players off and tank the season from the standpoint that these guys lose whatever momentum. That's the education that needs to go on this season.
Right, I agree. And you don't want to just strip it bare for the next GM and coach. You do have some young talent. Now, I'm not saying it's Super Bowl winning talent, but you do have some young talent, and you acquired that talent for a reason. Don't just ship it off. Let it develop, draft and develop. That's a lot of what this league is about. All right, let's go over to our next segment, and it's about Tua. And did we see Tua magic on Sunday, or did we see Tua under less pressure to have to shoulder the whole load for this team? Tua was 20 of 26, 205 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, a passer rating of 138 and change, I think maybe 138.9 or something like that. I thought that was what Tua needs to be doing, especially when you don't have Tyreek and Darren Waller out there. What did you think about what we saw from Tua, and whether that was Tua magic or Tua under less pressure to carry the load?
I think it was both. I think he certainly with the running game, he was helped out. When's the last time they threw across to Waddle? I mean,
Right.
I can't remember simple. I mean, Tua talked last week. He's not tall enough to see over the lines to see Waddle. But I don't know when the last time I saw that was, and that was in part, yes, Tua saw him, but also it was the running game. You look, Atlanta linebackers took a step forward and bid on the run idea,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
left some space for Waddle to have, and so it all fed into another. Tua made an incredible pass to Malik Washington, and Washington made a great catch and play on was that the first touchdown? On the pylon,
Yeah,
second
I think it
touchdown.
was the second, I think, yeah.
So I think this was a game where the game plan and the style of the game benefited Tua, and then Tua made some great passes too.
Yeah, and I think the help that Tua received can't be underestimated. Sean T 1496 says, "Is the Anthony Weaver defense finally clicking on all cylinders, or is it just fool's gold?" I think that that's repeatable. Now look, I'm not expecting Derrick Henry to have 9 carries for 25 yards. I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting Derrick Henry to actually have a pretty good game. But everything that they do to take pressure off of Tua is what I'm getting at here is going to help Tua tremendously.
Yeah.
And I do think that, again, actually tackling the ball carrier instead of trying to punch the ball out helped that defense tremendously. And we have Billy Batson Marble saying game manager Tua is the way. I think Tua was more than a game manager.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what the numbers are going to say. But I thought he made some well-placed throws, as you pointed out. He was under less duress, and maybe Brunskill helped. I'm not sure how often Brunskill was in there on passing plays, but Tua was under less duress. But I thought the run game and the play calling and the defense and all of that helped. You weren't relying on Tua's left arm to deliver the victory as you had been in past years and previous games this season. I think that this is the way to go for the Dolphins. I thought that, look, last season when Mike McDaniel went to that dink and dunk offense, I thought that was a brilliant piece of coaching because they weren't having any success against the 2 deep safety defense. And so they kind of reined it in. And I think that on Sunday, that's kind of what we saw is that you don't have Darren Waller, you don't have Tyreek, you do have Brunskill as the extra lineman. Let's use all this, utilize all 3 running backs, and we help Tua. And to me, that's the biggest thing there, that Tua probably did not feel all the pressure to carry the offense, to make all the plays, to have to worry about, can I thread the needle on this pass because, I have to do it. I thought we saw a much more relaxed Tua even when we were seeing the one-eyed version of Tua out there.
Yeah, let's see how Baltimore adjusts to Brunskill too. I mean, that was kind of a surprise in Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta really made an adjustment that I saw, and I didn't look at the second half with that idea. But Baltimore Dolphins are going to run Brunskill on. I'm sure they'll bring in another defensive lineman this time. and play it that way. But yeah, look, Dolphins getting the lead, being able to run the ball changes everything for game management, game time of possession, how Tua has to play. So that was a perfect script for the Dolphins last Sunday.
Yeah, I think it was. C. Dola, 9544 says, Perk, has this win changed anything and what Steve Ross will do in this offseason? We touched on that earlier. I think it's still a big picture thing, and that's followed by Richard Duff, 5894, saying Dolphins will be 2-9 by the bye week. Look, I don't think that this Dolphins team is going to win 9 games, okay? And I don't even know if that's mathematically possible at this point. Yeah, I guess it is, right? They've played 8, so I guess it is. But I do think that it's going to be the way that they play, the way that they are coached. I think that's going to make a big difference in what Steve Ross sees and what kind of success they have. Now, at this point, I'm not going to endorse Mike McDaniel or Chris Greer coming back next season because that was just one game. I've got to see it sustained, and this is supposed to be the tough part of the schedule, Hyde. This is that Baltimore, Buffalo, Washington trio that we looked at the start of the season, and we were like, oh, man, this is going to be really, really, really tough.
Looking a little easier right now, huh?
It doesn't look quite as tough.
You got Buffalo's really the only team, and even they aren't even winning the AFC East right now. So this schedule, so much has worked out, I think, in the Dolphins' favor. Now you didn't expect the Colts or the Patriots to be as good as they have proved to be, but let's not adjust the bar on what this season was supposed to be. Okay, let's not, because they started off so awfully, and if they have a good month. Let's not, everything's good again. No, the bar was set to not only make the playoffs, but push deep,
win a playoff game.
Further in, try to win a playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, is that such a high bar for this franchise at this point? Maybe it looks that way, but then that tells you why you got to make changes.
Yeah, I agree that was the bar for the season, winning a playoff game. Let's not move the goalposts at this point because they're 2-6, the same 2-6 record that they had last year. The goal was and is to win a playoff game. Anything short of that, you can still have a good showing, but it's not going to be a successful season. Let's not get that twisted. You had to win a playoff game this season. Mal B. Crazy is in the house. What's up, Mal? Let's see. When you Roger Allman asked, did Atlanta underestimate Miami and walked in thinking this is a win? The Ravens won't make the same mistake. I would think they probably did think that we're at home and the Dolphins are struggling. We've got this one, but that doesn't change the fact that the Dolphins played a crisp game. And once again, the Dolphins can play a crisp game on Thursday. Will it lead to a victory just playing a crisp game? I don't know, but I think Atlanta probably did take them a little lightly.
Well, that tells you they're not a very mature team then, because they're not good enough to take anybody lightly. They just lost to San Francisco. They lost, as you mentioned, what was it, 20 to nothing, 30-0 to Carolina. So they're not good enough. I don't know whether they did or not, but they got run off the field. Now, Baltimore, the interesting thing about this season is we talk about the Dolphins secondary and problems. The Dolphins really haven't come up, and I'm not saying they will this week, against a passing attack that could really, an elite passing attack. And what you think of an NFL-style passing attack beyond Buffalo. I don't. You went into the Indianapolis game, you didn't think Daniel Jones was that, and they didn't think they were that either. I'm sure in Indianapolis didn't think they had this great team assembled. And who have they really faced? And now there comes Lamar Jackson, who hasn't played in a month. So it'll be interesting to see how the defense handles him. And it's not even a great passing attack of Baltimore, even when they're up and running, but a very good one because of Lamar.
Yeah, and Lamar is having a great season here so far, and that leads us into our final segment. It's prediction time, and this is going to be an abbreviated show because Mike McDaniel is speaking at 1:30, so I've got to hightail it out to Miami Gardens. But Dave Hyde, my prediction for this game is Ravens 24, Dolphins 20. It's not only a homecoming for Lamar Jackson from Boynton Beach High School, it's a homecoming for Zay Flowers, the wide receiver from University School. We know Derrick Henry is coming in here. The running back, I'll tell you this about Baltimore. If you look at their season, some of those losses are pretty good losses, right? They have lost to the Rams, who are 5-2. They've lost to the Lions, who are 5-2. They've lost to the Bills, who are 5-2. They've lost to the Chiefs, who are 5-3, and then their other loss was against Houston. So this is not a joke of a Baltimore team. Now, granted, at 2-5, they're not the team that we thought that they were going to be. But Lamar, so far this season, 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's got a 130 passer rating. So, I mean, when he's been in there, he's been very effective. I think the Dolphins make a pretty good showing, but I do think that Baltimore comes out on top here.
Well, Perk, it's funny. I predicted the Dolphins 24-20. So we're flipping our scores here. Which is not good news for the Dolphins. Like I said, I've been wrong every game with the Jets. You could do that to the Dolphins, though. Their schedule too. They lost to the Colts.
Yep.
They lost to the Patriots. They lost to Buffalo.
Yep.
So, but to your point, what I'm basing the Dolphins' chance to win is this isn't a normal Baltimore team. Their defense is not the normal Baltimore Ravens beat you up and put you in a sack and drag you around the field. They're not that team. And so I think the Dolphins will have a chance to, again, bring in the running game, have some time of possession, and control, get his 20 of 27 again for 210 yards or whatever it was, and get out of the night. That's what I'm basing the win on.
Do you think that Mike McDaniel will stick with the run? And I think that's especially if he doesn't see early results. And let's say the Dolphins fall behind, 20-10 midway through the second quarter. Do you think Mike McDaniel panics and says we've got to move this ball downfield and what we did last week was it's not working this week even though I've still got Brunskill in there? Or do you think McDaniel says no, I'm staying the course? Because I could easily see McDaniel going back to his old ways.
Well, I would hope he sticks with the run, and I think he will. I think he's tried to stick with the run a lot this year. Sometimes the scores got out of hand. It's like people said Atlanta gave up on the run Sunday, and yet when you look and you actually go through how the game developed and everything, they tried to stay with the run till they fell behind 24-3, and then they had to abandon it. So one of the things when Mike would give up on the run, he had Tyreek Hill. Okay, yes, and yes. He said, I got to get the ball to Tyreek more. We can change it real quick or use our speed now. They don't have Tyreek. And so I think that helps to your idea for him to stick to the run.
Yeah. Let's see. Carl Becker, what's going on? He says Baltimore will be aggressive this week. Who else did I see in here? Malby Crazy checking in. Look, Richard Duff, 5894, says 3 picks for Tua on Thursday. Happy Evelyn says Tua is back. Which side do you lean closer to there? The three picks for Tua or Tua is back?
I want a pretty boy face-off. We had 2 pretty boys in the chat room, right? Maybe we should have it. So who of these 2 is right? We've seen both of them. We've seen both of them this year. So I have absolutely, again, I cannot get a handle on this team. I thought they'd get run off the field Sunday. I thought there were other games. I thought that this is a nice matchup for them. And they look, the rhythm of the season suggests they'll have good days, and they didn't. So I'm throwing my hands up and saying, let's go out and have a good game to watch.
Yeah. Let me throw a couple of numbers at you, Hyde. Let's see if either of these make a difference. The Dolphins are 19-9 at home in the Mike McDaniel era. That's winning 67.9% of their games. However, on Thursday nights in the McDaniel era, they are 0-3. They lost at Cincinnati in 2022, at Buffalo 2024, at Green Bay in 2024. Somebody else brought up the prime time McDaniel is not a good thing. Do either of those numbers make a bigger difference? The Dolphins in primetime games or the Dolphins record at home?
I tell you the number to me that makes a difference is Lamar Jackson coming home,
Yeah.
and he's
Yep.
played 4 games against the Dolphins. One, the Brian Flores zero blitz night where I think the
Yeah.
Dolphins were 1-7, something like that, going into that
Yep.
game. They won the game, and that's the one game Lamar Jackson had that's bad against the Dolphins. Other than that, he's had 3 good games, even though I believe he's 2-2 against them, but his numbers have been pretty good in the other 3. So, um, 19-9 at home is an interesting mark I think for Mike McDaniel. But 2-6, as both of them are. Baltimore's 2-6 right now too, right? Yeah, both are coming as 2-win teams. Will tells you they're not great teams, but they're going to be very desperate teams.
Right. Yeah. Ravens 2-5, but yeah, 2-5, 2-6. There's not much of a difference there. Let's see. JD the Great One says Baltimore 38-35. Bigote 1775 says 24-23 Ravens. What else did we have here? I thought, Richard Duff, 32-10 to the Ravens. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here because, I just don't have a whole lot of faith in the Dolphins going up against good teams. But Baltimore at 2-5, they really don't qualify as a good team here. You guys know what I used to always say: the Dolphins coming into this season under Mike McDaniel 4-16 against playoff teams. If Indianapolis makes the playoffs, that's 4-17. If Buffalo makes it, that's 4-18. If New England makes it, that's 4-19. So we'll see what the Dolphins can show here. I don't know if there's much hope for Baltimore making the playoffs at this point. But
they're only a couple games out. They're only a couple games out of the AFC Central. On the win side. If you're Baltimore fans, that's what you're thinking. If we got Lamar back now, we could make it. That has to be the mentality. To me, the Dolphins, it comes down to Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the ball, not passing the ball. And I know Lamar's a great passer now. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for the Dolphins side, they've had trouble with running quarterbacks, and they've had trouble until last week with big running backs. And so that if they can get a handle on that, that'll go a long way for the Dolphins having a good night.
That will. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am headed out to Miami Gardens to check out what's going on in the locker room, check out what's going on with Mike McDaniel, Tua, the assistant coaches. It's all going down today because we're on a short week, so this day becomes the work of 2 days. We will check in with you all next week, Tuesday at noon. Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. That's Dave Hyde. I'm Chris Perkins. We'll see you next week.